Today I'll be making the studio pants. These are comfortable everyday pants that could be made with soft linen blends, cotton, or lightweight denim. They're simple to sew, comfortable to wear, and a versatile piece you can add to your wardrobe. After you download the pattern, print the scale page and measure one of the squares. If the square measures correctly, then print the rest of your pattern. After you print out your pattern, line up the pages in order with 4 pages in a row, line them up edge to edge, do not overlap, and take your tape and tape the pages together. After you've taped the pattern pieces together, cut them out to your appropriate size based on your hip measurements. Now, before you cut your fabric, make sure you wash it and dry it to ensure that if it's going to shrink, that you've pre-shrunk it and it won't shrink any further after you've made your garment. Especially for linen, because linen can shrink quite a bit. So I washed mine in hot water and I dried it in high heat, and I'm also going to go ahead and iron this thoroughly before I cut into it. Before I begin sewing, I do like to spend a few minutes talking about the fabric I'm using for this project. For these studio pants, I've chosen a linen blend. Linen has been used for thousands of years and is one of the oldest textiles still worn today. It's made from the fibers of the flax plant, and it's known for its breathability, durability, and distinctive natural texture. One of the things I love the most about linen is that it doesn't try to be perfect. It softens with wear, it develops character over time, and it becomes more comfortable the longer you own it. For this project, I'm using a linen blend rather than 100% linen. While pure linen is beautiful, blending it with fibers such as rayon, tencel, or cotton can change how the fabric behaves. A linen rayon blend adds softness and drape, making the fabric flow more easily and wrinkle less than traditional linen. This makes it a wonderful choice for relaxed trousers like these. A cotton linen blend tends to feel a little more structured. It still has the breathability of linen, but creates a crisper silhouette, and it often works well for more casual garments. When choosing fabric for a project, I like to think about how I want the finished garment to feel and move. For the studio pants, I wanted something comfortable, breathable, and easy to wear throughout the year, which is why I chose a linen blend. Once you've ironed your fabric, you can fold your fabric lengthwise with the selvage on both sides, and you can follow this diagram for a 45 or 60-inch wide fabric. One very important thing you want to make sure you do is measure your grain lines to the selvage edge, making sure they are sitting parallel to the selvage of the fabric. This is really crucial because, especially for pants, if you don't line this up correctly, then you're going to get that weird twisting behavior in your pants. So just ensure that your pants are lined up nice and parallel to the selvage line. After you've cut out your fabric pattern pieces, before you remove the pattern paper, make sure you snip these notches just a little less than a half an inch. Don't go more than that, just barely snip each of your notches and transfer any markings. For this pattern, we're going to be transferring the back pocket. Here I'm sticking some pins in the markings, and I'm going to use this heat erasable pen. It's made by Friction, and I'm just going to mark each of those points on both sides of both pieces. And another thing I want to do is mark the back side of the fabric so that I don't lose track of my fabric. This fabric looks the same both on the wrong side and on the right side. So on each piece, I'm just going to mark the pattern piece. That way I know the marking is on the wrong side. Now for the next step, I want to make sure that I stabilize the pockets. We want to stabilize the front pocket because it sits diagonally, so the more you use the pocket, it can stretch out. So I'm going to be using a silk organza, but you can use a fusible lightweight interfacing instead if you want. I just like the silk organza and I wanted to test this out. Here I have just a piece of fusible interfacing cut out 1 inch. This is cut out for the back pocket, which is in your pattern. Start by just measuring that diagonal line where the front pocket goes, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces of about 1/2 inch on a silk organza fabric to use as my stabilizer. So here I've got the fabric. I'm just measuring 1/2 inch from the edge. I'm just going to draw a line and cut that piece out. After I have my organza piece cut, I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to pin 1 each on the wrong side of the front panel of the pants along the diagonal of that pocket. Then I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch this down at about maybe just slightly under 1/4 inch from the edge. Now our front panel has the stabilizer on the edges on the wrong side of the front panel. The next thing I'm going to do is cut out 2 pieces for the back pocket for the hem at the top. So here I'm just measuring about 1 inch from the edge of the organza. I folded it in half, and I'm just going to pin these to make sure both pieces are going to be at the same length and cut this out. Next, I'm going to pin a piece to each of the back pocket edges, but I'm going to pin it about 1/4 inch down from the edge because we're going to fold that over on the hem. So we're going to fold 1/4 over, then the stabilizer goes under that about 1 inch, and that's going to get folded again. And again, this is going on the wrong side of the fabric, not on the right side. Remember when we marked the wrong side? So I have my markings and I know which is the wrong side. Now I'm just marking a line 1/4 inch down. You can eyeball this or you can mark it with your pen if you like. And then I'm going to pin the organza. I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch this down on both of these pockets. And I'm going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch or so from the edge of the organza, not from the edge of the pocket. Next, I'm constructing the front pockets. I'm pinning the pocket bag to right sides together to the front panel, and that's the diagonal pocket bag. So pin both of those, then we're going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch at about 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to understitch to keep the seam allowance towards the inside of the pants. Again, it's right sides together. You can line up the edge of the pocket with the edge of your presser foot to get that 1/4 inch more accurately. Next, I'm going to understitch so the seam allowance faces the pocket bag, and we're going to stitch very, very close to the edge of that seam line right there. And this will keep the pocket from turning towards the outside. Next, make sure you press those seam edges. Next, I'm going to attach the other pocket bag. And for this piece, make sure that you've got the right side down, because the right side is what's going to show on the front of the pants. Okay, now I'm going to stitch at about 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around this pocket. Now I'm just basting down the top edge of the pocket to the front panel so it doesn't move around while I'm handling this pattern piece. Okay, the 2 front panels are complete. Overlocked edge the pockets and basted the side and the top edge to the front of the pants. Now I'm pressing down the hem of the back pocket towards the right side because I'm going to stitch down the sides and then I'm going to flip it over. Stitch down the side of the back pocket here at about 1/4 of an inch, or maybe slightly less than 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm gonna flip it over, but before I do, I'm clipping the corners to remove some of the bulk out of those corners and use that point turner to push those corners out. Now I'm just gonna press it down, and I'm folding in 1/4 of an inch on the sides and pressing that as well. And I'm gonna repeat that on both sides and also at the bottom of this pocket. Next, I'll stitch down that hem. I'm facing the right side up and aligning the edge to my 1 inch guideline on the machine. And I'm just gonna stitch all the way across and secure the hem to the pocket. Now I'm ready to attach the pocket to the back panels. Make sure you attach this to the right side of your pants. The markings should be on the wrong side. Align the pocket with those markings, pin it down. Then I'm going to go to the machine and stitch all the way around the sides and the bottom One thing I'll do at the top to secure that stitching so that when you put things in and out of your pocket, it stays stable, is I'm going to use a triangle stitch. So here I'm starting at one end, just below the hem edge. I'm stitching up, then leave the needle in and turn, but I'm hand cranking because I only want 2 stitches here. Then leave the needle in and turn that piece around again here, and then stitch down the side of this pocket right on the edge, as close to the edge. And you can use your presser foot to align the edge so that you can get as close as you can. And every time I get to a corner, I leave the needle in the down position. And then turn and continue. And I'm doing the triangle stitch here again to finish the top edge of that pocket. Again, whenever I pivot and turn, I hand crank just for a couple of stitches before I turn down. And this will secure your pocket so that when you insert things, it won't unravel. Both the front and back pockets have been attached to the front and back panels. Now I'm going to pin the side seams together, making sure you match up the notches and the right sides are facing each other. And then I'll go to the machine and stitch this down at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and end. Now I'll finish the raw edges using my overlock. You can also use a zigzag stitch or pinking shears to finish your raw edges. After you finish both side seams, press the seams to one side. I like to press mine towards the back panel. After you press those seams, match up the inseams. Again, make sure you match up the notches and pin it together. Then I'll go to the machine, again stitching at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and end. And make sure you repeat this on both pant legs. And of course, make sure you overlock those seam edges. Press the inseam to one side. Here I'm pressing it towards the back. Now to finish the crotch seam, I've got the 2 pant legs. One has the right side out, one has wrong side. Take the one that has the right side out and insert it into the one that's wrong side out. You want the right sides facing each other. And then once you've got the right sides facing, pin the crotch together, making sure you line up that center line or that inseam line. Pin those together all the way around. Then we're going to go to the machine and stitch this. I'm stitching the crotch seam at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. For extra reinforcement, I always stitch the crotch seam twice. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and at the end. finish the crotch seam, you can overlock or zigzag stitch. And then press the crotch seam to one side. And you can press from the inside or from the right side. Now I'm going to get the waistband ready. I've got the two pieces going to the machine and I've stitched it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to pin it to the waist for measurement purposes. Sometimes the waistband can stretch after handling, so before I stitch the other ends together, I want to pin it to the waistband and make sure that I cut off any excess and stitch it at the right length. I'm pinning them together where I marked it and matching those lines. Then I'll go to the machine and stitch those together. Now I stitch that together. I'm going to cut off the excess and I'm going to pin the rest of this waistband to the pants. And then I'm going to go to the machine and stitch the waistband to the front here and stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, here you can use your presser foot as the guide to measure that 1/4 inch. Press the waistband seam up towards the waistband. Now we're going to press down the top of the waistband a 1/4 inch. And you can again eyeball this, or if you want, you can be more precise and measure it. I'm just going to eyeball this. Next, fold the waistband towards the inside and fold it to overlap the stitching line where the waistband is attached to the pants. Make sure that folded edge just barely overlaps and then pin it all the way across. Then we're going to go to the machine and we're going to do a stitch in the ditch from the right side. That way you won't see the stitching. You'll also need to leave a small gap in the back where we're going to insert the elastic. So I'm starting just right after the center back and I'm going to end right before it. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and at the end. I'm also using my fingers here to kind of guide me in that ditch and make sure that I can feel the back part is being caught in the stitching. Press the waistband and you'll need a 1 inch elastic. I would measure it about 2 inches longer than your waist measurement or whatever is comfortable for you. So measure your elastic and cut the length that you desire. And then insert the elastic using a bodkin or a safety pin. Make sure the elastic is not twisted. Once you ensure it's not twisted, then you'll overlap the two edges and go to the machine and just straight stitch across that overlapped edge a few times to secure the elastic. Once that's done, I'm going to close that opening and our waistband is finished. The final step is the hem. I'm folding in at a 1/4 inch and pressing it down. Then I'm going to fold over again to cover that raw edge at another 1/4 inch for a total of about 1/2 inches, and I'm going to stitch this down. Now for a shorter pant, you can make your hem a little bit longer. It does allow for a 1/2 inch. Now I'm just lining up my hem with the 1/4 line guideline on my machine, and I'm going to stitch on the edge of that folded hem all the way, and that'll complete the hem. I'm just going to give a final press to everything, and this completes the studio pants. I hope you guys enjoyed this sew along. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below. Again, to download the pattern and the details are in the description of the video.